And in fact, how many of these weapons did they remove over the 10 years?
8,000 guns and 80,000 knives.
So almost 90,000 weapons, guns, knives, box cutters over the course of 10 years. That's maybe reasonably impressive, you could argue. Now, the other piece to this, it gave some statistics that would suggest that this wasn't actually racially based at all, dealing with violent crimes and guns, correct? What did it say about violent crimes and guns, Nadia? You can zoom in on her since she's that close. Everybody's going to think watching this video that she's really intelligent, but she's just looking at the articles that are right in front of her, so we need to put that on blast. What was the percentages? I believe it talked about gun crimes and violent crimes, correct?
It says blacks commit 66% of the city's violent crime and 77% of shootings.
Yeah, some people would argue that this isn't racist because if you look at the crime percentages, some people would suggest anytime that you're that far above the mean average of per population in the city, that in fact there's something else that's going on here. You're making a face, Stefan.
Oh, no, I'm just thinking.
Just thinking. Go ahead, Pablo, you're making a face.
Also, this was like in black districts, so they're like preventing black people from shooting each other.
Isn't it interesting? And that was one of the other pieces to this. Some folks had suggested that this was racist because, in fact, you were targeting black and Hispanic folks disproportionately to their percentage of the population. Other folks actually began to say, no, it's not like that at all. The victims of the crimes of the people that you're taking the weapons from were typically going to be black or Hispanic. So the thought process was is that this wasn't racist. You're actually protecting the people that you could argue maybe most needed protected. This was struck down, or is it still legal?
Still legal.
It is still legal. It was struck down and then it was overturned. What is the new plan that they're talking about in New York City to figure out if stop and frisk is actually legal or not? Being legally implemented, I should say. Body cameras. They're gonna require them to have body cameras, and they're gonna watch these searches. These are the articles from 3. Let's get into the terms from chapter 11 and just make sure that y'all are comfortable with these, because chapter 11, as you might would imagine, is gonna be a biggie on this exam. And I'll just scroll down to the bottom up here. Do y'all have any questions about any of the terms?
Filibuster.
Filibuster is the one where they're allowed to even talk as long as they want, or on the floor as long as they keep talking.
Okay.
And it's like supposed to delay a bill.
Oh, with that guy who was talking about the Bible. And
Who was the guy?
I forgot.
Oh, wait.
Who was the guy that had the longest filibuster in United States Senate history, and how long was it?
23 hours.
It was almost 25 hours. South Carolinian.
Oh, no.
He was reading the Bible.
He was reading the Bible.
Grocery.
He read his grocery list. He read the phone book. He even talked about the bill sometimes.
Can you say like one part of it?
S. First name.
I know.
Strom.
Strom. Yeah, I know it. I do know it.
Strom. What? No. Strom Armstrong. That sounds like some kind of Strom Thurmond. Yes, it was. Strom Thurmond actually got up on the Senate floor and he spoke for almost 25 consecutive hours. He was against a civil rights bill. Now, when he was done with the filibuster, the bill passed over all of his speaking. Almost immediately it passed. But he was really revered in his community because he stood up to the system, even though he did everything he could. At least that's the way it was presented. It still passed anyway. His people loved him. Now, with this said, the filibuster, if you're in the Senate, you have unlimited debate. So you can talk for as long as you want to talk. And that's basically what the filibuster is. Now, you can't yield the floor. You can't leave. You've got to continue to talk this whole entire time. So when you talk for 25 straight hours, you're doing something. Because, you know, the more you drink, the more you maybe try to sip some soup or something, the more you're going to have other needs to maybe leave the actual podium. How do you stop a filibuster?
Two-thirds for that?
Close. 60. You need 60 senators to stop. And what's this called? To stop a filibuster? Oh. Cloture. You need a cloture vote, and you need 60 senators. And if you remember, I had mentioned to y'all that Barack had 60 senators at the very beginning when he got into office. Ted Kennedy died, a Republican was elected, he only had 59. And that one vote, even though he had a comfortable majority, meant that he could not filibuster, or he could not stop a filibuster, I should say. And what you end up seeing on these is the party in the minority will threaten to filibuster. The majority party will pull it back if they cannot get the 60 votes to be able to stop it, and effectively a vote never happens because they, just pull it back. They're kind of scared by the minority. Go ahead.
I'm curious as to characteristics of the House and characteristics of
Yeah.
the Senate. How
Okay.
general is that?
All right, well, let's talk about this. One of the big themes in this chapter is going to be differences between the House and differences between the Senate. What are some of the basic differences or the basic characteristics between House and Senate?
So, can I?
Go ahead.
So for the House, you need to be,
For the House, they need to be
you need to be 25 years old.
25 years old,
A 7-year residency.
7-year residency,
2-year term.
2-year
And
term,
there's 435 members.
435 voting members. So the House, you have 435 voting members. A minimum age of 25, this is the lowest age. 7-year residency, lowest residency requirement. 2-year term, it's the lowest term. How many House members get elected every 2 years?
They have recycling things, so I think it's only 1/3.
It's 1/3 of the Senate every 2 years.
218.
So 218, so half of the House every 2 years. All of the House every 2 years is up for re-election. They made the House the most responsive to the popular will, so in fact, the House can have dramatic swings from a majority of one party to a majority of the other party, and we'll come back to that a little bit. What were the characteristics of the Senate? Go ahead.
100 members.
Yes.
2 representatives from each state.
Yes.
6-year terms.
Yes.
1/3 elected every 2 years.
Yes.
Sorry. Members must be at least 30 years of age.
30 years of age. They have a higher age because this is a more prestigious office. Go ahead.
9 years a citizen.
9-year residency, yes.
And reside in the state from which chosen.
Yeah, you do have to reside. Of course, in the House, you have to reside in the district. But go ahead.
Empowered to try federal office holders.
And we'll come back to that in just a second. Understand what's the key for the Senate being 1/3 every 2 years? Do you remember what I said? We talked about checks and balances, and I had mentioned to you that the House and the Senate kind of check each other. How is it that they kind of check each other? Uh-oh.
You're comparing it to the hot cup of coffee.
Hot cup of coffee. Go ahead, explain the hot cup of coffee.
So you said because House is so crazy and you do a lot of many things and if you do something too much, so Senate will cover up for them, basically.
The Senate slows them down. The House, every 2 years, they're going to be up for election. So they've got to move. They've got to do things. They've got to almost be campaigning all the time. So it's push, push, push. The Senate is slow down. When I get elected to the Senate, I don't really have to think about election for 4 years because at the end of my 4th year, then I have 2 years left in my term. So I'm not going to be nearly as urgent as far as pushing. I'm going to be trying to slow things down. And that hot cup of coffee, what I had said about that, it was George Washington that said it. He said that the Senate was like a hot cup or the saucer under the hot cup of coffee. The hot coffee are going to be the passions that spill over from the cup in the House, but they spill into the saucer, which is the Senate, where the passions will cool down and they get back onto task a little bit. Characteristics of the House and the Senate are kind of a big deal, but don't just give me a chart. Kind of explain why these are. The Senate is designed to slow things down. They have longer terms. They are the more prestigious body. They have higher requirements. What is it that the Senate can do that the House can't? 2 things that I mentioned.
They can choose president in case of electoral vote type.
I guess they could do that, but we didn't talk about that. What did we talk about that the Senate could do that in fact the House has no voice in? Unique powers of the Senate. Iran may have come up.
They can communicate with
International affairs.
internationally without the president's.
It's against states of war, declares war.
Well, House and Senate together will declare the war. Supreme Court justice appointments, how does that work? Or treaties, how does that work?
Does it make also cabinet level appointments?
What's that?
Does it make cabinet level appointments?
Well, let's focus on the treaties and the Supreme Court appointments. How does that work with the President and the Senate? The President will actually negotiate treaties. with the advice and consent of the Senate. So even though you negotiate a treaty, it's still got to pass the Senate or it doesn't become law. And I had mentioned to y'all Woodrow Wilson. They negotiated the peace treaty to World War I. The United States Senate rejected the Treaty of Versailles because of the commitment of American troops in the event that war broke out in Europe. So we didn't ratify that treaty. With Supreme Court nominations, the president will nominate a Supreme Court justice, but it's still subject only to the approval of the Senate. Only to the approval of the Senate. So with this in mind, again, only the Senate deals with treaties, only the Senate deals with appointments, and this could be Supreme Court, could be cabinet appointments, could be foreign diplomats, but only the Senate deals with these. What is the power that the House has that's unique? Or is a House advantage, you maybe could argue? Go ahead.
Initiate bills raising revenue.
Initiate the revenue bills. The House, only the House initiates revenue bills. Now in fairness, the House has no voice in treaties and appointments. The Senate will have a voice in revenue bills. It's just that the House starts them. And some people would argue that if you get to set the terms of the debate, that's an advantage. And I'll let you kind of ponder that. Any other differences? And I want to make sure that I get this. We talked about impeachment in, was it the 9 o'clock class? Was it the 10 o'clock class? What's the how does impeachment work? I'm pretty sure we talked about it in the 11 o'clock class, though. No, maybe we didn't. Well, what is the deal with impeachment with the House and the Senate?
They can impeach a president if.
What does it mean to impeach? Actually, no. Go ahead.
Try for a crime.
Impeachment means that you're actually going to be charging somebody with a crime. And it is the House, in fact, that impeaches. And this could be president, this could be member of Congress, this could be a Supreme Court justice, whatever the case might be. So if you're impeached, you've technically been charged. And only the House can charge, and you just need a simple majority. If, in fact, you are impeached, you then will go to the United States Senate for trial. And it'll be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presiding over the trial. And at that point, you need a significant majority. And at that point, the senators, if they convict you, your punishment is removal from office. Have you ever heard of the two presidents that were actually impeached? Go ahead.
Clinton and Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson and Clinton. Everybody, Andrew Johnson and Clinton. Everyone wants to say Nixon.
Right, but no, he was pardoned.
And we're going to talk about it probably in tomorrow's class because Nixon was pardoned. Nixon was pardoned. But Clinton was impeached. His ultimate penalty was he lost his law license for 5 years once this was all said and done. And Andrew Johnson was almost impeached after Lincoln had been assassinated. Or, I'm sorry, he was impeached. He was almost convicted. Let me put that.
Kind of was.
Nixon knew he was going to be impeached and convicted, so he just resigned and was pardoned. What other questions have you got up here? We got the top line out of the way.
Hotline.
Don't worry about hotline. Let's go ahead and remove that right now.
What's gerrymandering?
Gerrymandering. What's gerrymandering? Yeah, that's on tape. Tune in on there. Yeah. What's gerrymandering? Because I know we talked about this in all of them.
It is a practice of drawing boundaries of partisan advantage.
Yeah, it is. When every 10 years there's a census, and if you remember, these all kind of go together: reapportionment, gerrymandering, and racial gerrymandering. Reapportionment is the idea that once you get the count, the number of people that live in a state or in a district, then you've got to reapportion so that all of the districts are going to be roughly the same size. The state legislatures are typically the ones that are in charge of this. So the party that is in charge of the state legislature kind of gets to draw the districts the way that they want. Now, the trick on this with gerrymandering, the number one thing when you reapportion is you want to have the districts the same size. The trick on this, though, with gerrymandering is that if I'm a Republican and I control the state legislature, I'm going to want to draw as many districts as I can that are going to have Republican majorities, because that way more Republican candidates are going to win. Can you do that legally? Yes. Now, when does it become gerrymandering? Gerrymandering is when it basically looks like you're trying to cheat. And if you remember, do you remember how gerrymandering got its name?
The salamander.
The salamander.
Right.
Elbridge Gerry was the guy that drew districts up in the Northeast. I think it was Massachusetts. And in fact, it looked like a salamander. And I showed you that picture from the book. So gerrymandering is basically when it looks like you're cheating and you create these districts. Typically it is. Do y'all remember when I drew the district from Alabama?